welcome back to the channel. My name is Aditi and today I am back with some bling shaped cards. Starting off with a piece of white cardstock which is cut to 8.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and I'm scoring it at 4.25 along the 8.5 inch side just to give me a 4.25 by 4.5 inch card base. I am going to be using the Terrarium add-on die set to create my shaped card. And what I have done is I have die cut the Terrarium, and I will show you in a bit on the variety of papers that I've die cut it. But I am just using the outline as a reference, placing the longer side along my folded line of the card and tracing the Terrarium around on this piece that I have just scored and folded. I am creating two cards, so I'm just repeating the same process on the second piece of white cardstock, and this gives us an outline shape for this shaped card. Now, initially in my mind, I was going with this idea of creating two diamond shaped cards because when the terrarium die is inverted, it kind of looks like a crystal or a diamond. But after I sort of start inlaying the die cut pieces and complete that process, I liked it much better as a terrarium originally. So that shape appealed to me much more. And so this card has another twist. It opens differently. Instead of opening, say, a top fold, it is going to open backwards, and I thought that was just quite unique to it. So once I've traced it, I have trimmed all the edges with my scissors, of course not cutting along that score line, and I am using this new ombre glitter cardstock from Crafty Meraki, and I have die cut two pieces, one the blue purple and one more of the warmer tones with the terrarium die. And I have also die cut this on gold mirror and iridescent mirror cardstock. So I have four outlines and die cut pieces. I am saving all the inlaid die cut pieces, and what I begin by doing is using that gold mirror and iridescent mirror outline. I am going to first adhere that to my card bases. Now you will notice when you flip around, just a little bit of this outline is overhanging at the top where we have our folded line. I don't trim it, it doesn't bother me. It looks absolutely fine on the front. So once I have both the outlines glued down, I am then going to inlay the other pieces from my glitter cardstock. So using the warmer tones, I am inlaying all those pieces on the gold outlined card base, and this is going to create that glitter, shiny, fabulous crystal look, because initially, like I told you, I was going in for creating these diamonds or crystals, and I think they look stunning. They make for great, adorable, cute cards, and I that's the reason why I just stick around with them and complete these cards. So once I have one all done, I am then picking in the blue purples and inlaying the die cut pieces, just following the pattern. And I am using liquid glue. You could also use foam tape and add depth and dimension. For this technique, I thought liquid glue worked well simply because I have a nice contrasting layer for the outline and these glitter pieces inlaid, and it worked for me. So I am completing, assembling and gluing down all the pieces from the glitter cardstock onto my second card. And once I have that done, I am showing you how I invert it, and I prefer using it as this orientation. So I am using the rose die and just the buds and leaves. So I have die cut the leaves on vellum, and I'm using scrap pieces of the glitter cardstock in coordinated colors and die cutting the rose layer. So I am going to die cut two bud layers on the blue purple and two bud layers on the warmer tones, and have four sets of rose bud layers die cut, and I am die cutting six leaves on vellum because I will use 3 for each card. So once I have all of these pieces die cut and laid out, I am just using a little piece because my scrap pieces are cut out in such a way, so I'm just making the most of them and cutting out all the pieces that I need. I like to follow the reference guide, and I've mentioned this before. I just follow the reference guide and lay out all the pieces in the order they're supposed to be adhered. So I'm first bringing out all the pieces for the warmer layers, because since this is an ombre glitter cardstock, I can then mix it up and see which layer looks better on the previous base layer. So I just alternate and mix it up and shuffle them. And once I have good gradation in my layers, I can then begin assembling them. So just removing the triangle pieces, the negative pieces that I don't need, those are for making sure I have everything well aligned. I am using pieces of foam tape between the layers to bring in more depth and dimension. Now, this first bud that I'm putting together, I also use foam tape on this last piece that you see me adhering, but here on I will eliminate that and I will just glue that down, because I realize that when I'm adding these tiny shading detail layers, it's just easier if that previous layer was glued flat down to that layer instead of having that foam tape dimension, because then these seem to just hang in the air. The look isn't bad, I personally don't mind it, but I just feel like the other look is much better. So I have first assembled, and in the same way I'm just going to assemble the other 3 rose buds. And I am bringing back my card base just to play around and see what type of a composition works and how it actually looks. And that vellum breaks it up for me. It adds such a nice base between the rosebud and that card base. And since we've used so much of this glitter cardstock, the vellum is perfect to add that contrast and break the monotony. So just continuing and assembling and adding foam tape and liquid glue and layering all the pieces together to assemble my rosebuds. Now I am using rosebuds because these shaped cards are kind of small, and the rosebuds seemed perfect to add as focal elements. The rose flower in itself is a bigger flower, so I didn't want to add that and take away from the idea of this being such a cool shaped card. So there you can see I placed that other rosebud and this composition is working out so well. I have the Passion Posies stamped sentiments that I have stamped and die cut. So these work well for these cards because these are smaller and just add to the card instead of taking away from it. So here on the second card, I am creating a composition on the right side. On the previous one, I created one on the left side. And I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue to apply behind my vellum leaves. And that anyway is going to be covered by the rose buds. So that works for me. I have good adherence between the vellum and the card base. I am using further squares of foam tape just to bring in more dimension and distinguish those buds from the card base even further. And now you'll see me just play around. So I want to tuck that leaf in there. I begin by trimming it, adhering one part, and I feel like I could use the remaining piece that I trimmed on the opposite end. And ultimately I just stem off that excess stem that was overhanging and just have these 2 clusters of the leaf kind of completing the cluster at the bottom. So I have added a cluster of 3 leaves and 2 flowers, making it for a nice cute cornered bouquet, which works very well for this card. So with this, I want to show you that you can always mix up your dye. So I'm using the Terrarium dye, which was actually an add-on set with the succulents, but I'm using the rosebuds instead, and it still looks stunning and gorgeous. So completing it with adhering that stamped and die cut sentiment, this card is as cute and adorable as I had imagined it to be. So don't be afraid, just pull out your dies, stretch them, mix them up, and create cards. And of course, create such shaped cards just to add a unique touch and make your receiver smile. So that is a closer look at both these shiny bling shaped cards. I hope you've enjoyed this video today. Do leave your comments. I love reading them. And until the next time, take care and bye bye.